Hey everyone, in this episode, we go through how you can be yourself online. We go through some principles that you can follow when you're building your YouTube channel.
And we'll also talk about what it actually means to be authentic. And then we'll discuss some practical ways you can stay authentic online.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Nick and Sanjee podcast, where we share our tips and tricks on how to start and grow a YouTube channel as we ourselves go on that journey. How are you today, Nick?
Not too bad. I'm a little bit sleepy, so I'm going to have to try and stay high energy. But yeah, not
Yes,
too bad. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. Just came out of a standard workday, so I'm nothing but high energy. We are nothing but high energy people
All that
on this
adrenaline.
channel. But we're excited. We've got a topic today around practical tips on how to be yourself online. So we've been online now for a few years, and we thought it's a good chance for us to share some of the things that we've learned that have helped us stay quite authentic over time, things that we think you can implement in your own journey in terms of creating content online. And hopefully, as you see it throughout it, is they're pretty straightforward things that anyone can really do, and it's very easy to implement, really. So to start off with, Nick, what does authenticity mean to you this day and age?
That's a very good question. I think I'm still kind of working out what that means for me in terms of my own content. And I think to a degree it probably means something different to everyone, depending on what type of content you have and everything. But for me, I think like trying to be myself online and trying to be authentic. It's kind of a few things. One is trying to be myself on camera, because I think especially when I first started creating content, it feels unnatural, speaking to an inanimate object rather than a person. So, I got a bit stiff and didn't really know how to talk to it and that kind of thing. So, I think just trying to be the same on camera as I am when I'm just chatting to people in my everyday life. So that's kind of one thing. Um, Trying to make content with the right motives. So I think again in my early days, I did make some videos just for the sake of trying to make money or get a lot of views. But
Yep.
now I think trying to be myself, trying to be authentic, means trying to have the right motives. So it's genuine content, I guess, rather than trying to have an underhanded objective. And then for me, as someone who sort of does a lot of tech stuff with cameras and camera gear and that type of thing, um, I try to only recommend products that I actually like myself, or that things that I think are actually good, or things that I use myself. Because I mean, once you kind of get past maybe 1 or 2 thousand subscribers, you start to get heaps of product offers, and it can be really tempting to just take them all these free products and whatever. Um, but I think trying to stick to the ones that are actually good and that are going to help my
Mm.
viewers is also what it means to be authentic for me. So that's kind of what it means to me. I'm still, again, figuring out as I go along. But what does it mean for you, Sanjee, with your content?
Yeah, it's similar in terms of the personal finance space. There's a lot of sponsorship opportunities that come up that don't necessarily align with products that I actually use. Like literally, it'll be companies that I don't use their product will come saying, "Hey, can you try this out?" Or "Can you do a video? Can we do a collaboration on this?" And I'm like, "It's not even in my space. I don't use it. I've never heard of you. I'm not really interested."
Mm,
And I think that's the best way to stay authentic because yeah, you do have the issue where if you do start to just do a deal with anyone, it will come through. And I think we'll touch on this a little bit later. Is around that comes through. And I just remember in one of Gary Vee's audio books, and not in one of his little videos, but in his audio books, he did say you should always try and if you can hold off on doing sponsorship until you find someone that you actually are happy to work with or you
mm,
actually do use.
mm-hmm.
Because even we've been in situations where we've listened to someone on a podcast and they advertise something. And when they actually say, I use this product,
Mm,
then you're like, oh, okay, that you kind of believe it rather than here's a
yeah.
product.
Yep.
And, or they say, I use this product and I recently started using it. The one thing I hate though is when, and I'm not going to throw any creators under the bus because I haven't verified this, but is if you watch a video from them 3 years ago where they recommend a particular product and then like 3 months ago, they seem to be still in the same category, but now are recommending a different product.
Mm,
Um, I know that can be a reality though, especially in the digital category, things can change pretty quickly,
yep.
but there is something to be said about, um, trying to be a little bit consistent in how you approach it. In the personal finance space, that's been pretty easy because, I like certain ETF providers. and they've been pretty stable. But yeah, I imagine in the particular product space that can be a bit tricky. If you genuinely like something, then a year later something genuinely better comes along.
Yep.
How you navigate that could also be a bit tricky.
Yeah, and I like the idea of connecting it back to real people, because I think a thing that still kind of shocks me to this day is when I get people come up to me in real life, like friends or people who've seen my content, and they'll say, "Oh, I saw that product you recommended, and I went and bought it." And I'm like, "Oh man, that's kind of freaky." It's like, oh man, I've actually got some recommendation power. You know what I mean? So that's a good reminder for me to not recommend trash products, because it's like people are actually listening to what I'm saying. They're actually listening to my recommendations, and I don't want to steer people wrong, especially people that I know, both people that I know and people that I don't know. So yeah, I think again, it can be so easy to just think of the views as just numbers and forget that it's actually real people watching. So I think that's a good way to stay authentic as well, is just think about the people. You think about your audience as real people rather than just numbers or statistics, that type of thing. So yeah.
So we can probably transition into talking about some of the principles that we follow broadly to help us with staying authentic online. What are some that you follow, Nick?
Well, it kind of basically follows on from what I was saying just then, really, about trying to think about the audience as real people. So I tried to keep in mind the main stakeholders, and that's a really like, I don't know, corporate term. Like I just couldn't think of a better word for it. But the main people I try to think about is my audience, like my target audience. So what do they want to see? What do they like to see? What's going to be helpful to them? I think that's a really big thing I'm really trying to focus more on. Like, how's my content actually going to help someone? And then when I stay true to that, I think it just helps me be more consistent, and reminds me of why I'm trying to make content in the first place. And then with sponsors, I try and think about the types of sponsors that I want to attract in the future, and that guides the type of content that I make and how I present online. So I tend to want to attract higher quality sponsors, and so that informs my decisions in terms of trying to make my content as high quality as it can be, rather than just doing a really basic job or not putting in a lot of effort. Just keeping the sponsors in mind helps me to just keep it at that high standard. And then I try to have, I wrote out at the start of the year some values of my channel, which I need to go reread and just refresh myself on. This kind of just helps me stay on track. So things like, is this going to be helpful? Is this honest? Is it high quality? Just kind of like some values that are sort of personal values as well. That really helps me to stay on track. So yeah, that's kind of some loose principles, but again, it all sort of just goes back to thinking about the people who are going to see my content. How is it helpful? And yeah, what's my goals with that? So how about for you, Sanjee?
Yeah, something you mentioned around the making sure you attract the right type of sponsor, which is very much indicative of the journey that you've been on, because I think initially when we all start YouTube channels, we just surprised if anyone offers a sponsorship. And then you see what happens when you get lower quality options or partners that are coming out there, and you realize you actually have the opportunity to build the right kind of environment that will then attract the right type of people. And I don't think I shared this with you, but someone that you actually recommended to me, Olia Online. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But he's got some really nice visually appealing videos. But it's not necessarily about, content creation. There's actually a lot of stuff that he does in terms of the online space. But the Creator Now Academy was talking about how they had done a survey of the sponsors out there, and the feedback from them was, we really like using someone like Olia's platform because he makes such nice looking videos, and he can then demand quite a high premium for someone to be sponsored on there.
Yep, exactly. I was actually speaking to a previous brand manager of a pretty well known brand recently, and he was telling me he'd had contact with Olia, and literally that exact thing he said. Olia can charge really high prices compared to a lot of other people because his standard of content is so high. But I think that's a really interesting kind of point, because is that authentic for Olia? Do you know what I mean? Like, is he presenting a really polished version of his life? Is that him being authentic? I think that's the tricky thing with content, is that it's, on the one hand, it's like, it represents you as an individual, and you want to be authentic and true to who you are. But then on the other hand, it's also a business if you are taking it seriously. And so you've got to think about it from a business point of view. And so it's sort of, I don't know, the two intersect. And I think that's where you got to find the right balance in terms of being yourself, being authentic, but also keeping it professional, doing the right things, from a business point of view. And maybe that's where the values and principles really start to come in, because if you have those underlying principles, they guide both your individual persona, but also your business decisions. So yeah, I don't know, I'm sort of thinking out loud, but
yeah, there's almost an episode in there, I think, Nick, around how you navigate that, because I think that is very much the case for us. Is we want to create content online and we want it to be a more serious thing over time, but there's definitely an opportunity for us to figure out how you find that balance of being, you learn very quickly that you have a brand online. Whether it's something you're trying to intentionally propagate or not, very quickly people associate you with a certain type of branding, and the way you talk, the topics that you cover, the way you approach a certain topic. Because nowadays it's very easy to find 5 people who will talk about the same thing. And there's a way that Nick will talk about something compared to the way that Sanjee will talk about something. And that's sort of your branding there as well. So I agree. Olia does certainly, he has moments where I think he shows he certainly has transparency as part of his values, I would say. Like, he tries to be pretty transparent.
Yeah.
But I agree, like, it's a very polished view. I like to think that my unpolished view is me being authentic, but it's probably me being lazy a lot of the time. But yes, it does work for him, that we should probably consider implementing. Now, in terms of some practical advice, how do you approach your content creation journey that someone can implement tomorrow when they want to start making videos or creating content online?
Yeah, I mean, like I sort of mentioned earlier, when you first sit down in front of a camera, I think it can be kind of intimidating, because it does feel pretty weird and unnatural, like talking to a camera. So a few things that I've found have helped me with that is trying to imagine the camera as a person. And it sounds a bit weird, but yeah, like, I just imagine how I feel when I'm chatting to you, for example, or chatting to a friend or a family member or whoever it is, someone that I'm comfortable with. And then I try to just speak to the camera like I would with that person, rather than trying to put on some sort of persona or something like that. I think that really helps me to stay authentic and, like, feel comfortable, feel relaxed, and just be more myself. And as well, I think the added benefit is that it helps you connect with your audience better, because people are watching, they want to connect with the person presenting on the video. And if you're speaking to the camera like you would a friend, then it feels a lot more friendly, as the viewer. And I'm sure we could both agree. We've seen, the types of creators we like to watch are quite conversational. It feels natural. So, that's the first one. Did you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, I was thinking, it is a learned skill. I think it is a learned skill, Nick. It's, you start out in a room locked away, very quiet, sometimes very hot because of the lights.
Yep.
And you're trying to pretend that there is someone there.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get used to that. And that's where I'd say it's the power of the edit that saves all of us, really, at a various point. So I've often found, I will say it as if I am chatting to someone. And a lot of our content, it has to come down to 8-10 minutes, but our raw footage might be 30-40 minutes. So it does help that the edit does help you, or the ability to edit helps you cut it really down to what works. But I always do start with exactly the same principle that you're saying, Nick, is pretend you're explaining it to a friend. and then from that, that helps you have, especially for me, like you can already see in this, if you're watching us, you can see with my hands how much I talk very visually, and even when I'm listening, I'm very visual and engaged, or like very active when I'm talking and when I'm listening. Doesn't mean people who aren't active are not
Yep.
talking or listening well. But yeah, I guess in that way, I then also translate that in my camera work. And then when I come into the edit, I sometimes worry and panic that I'm too active. But I think as well, that's kind of my brand, is people
Yep.
realize, yeah, that's his thing. And I
Yep.
felt better when I saw Ali Abdaal does it a lot. Peter McKinnon does it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Maddie doesn't do it that much. He's rock solid, and Case is just he's too dynamic to need hand movements
Yeah.
to be interesting. He's
Yeah.
just interesting.
Yeah. That's true. That's very
Yeah,
true. That's a good point on like understanding that it just takes practice.
yeah,
Yeah. Like you just got to be patient. I think thinking that yeah, your first 5, 10, I don't know, 20 videos are going to be like Peter McKinnon. Like, yeah, I think if you're just patient with yourself. I
yeah.
mean, I think I'm still practicing being comfortable in front of a camera. Like I've gotten a lot more used to it now, but
Yep.
it's an ongoing process. So yeah.
The easy cheap one, and I'm just, as you're saying this, the one that came to mind is the easy cheap way to get good at it is actually not the easy cheap way to get good at it, but the easy way to kind of test it out is if you do tutorials. Because I find a lot of people have enjoyed my tutorials because they're practically useful, but it is also a very good example of you just sitting down next to someone explaining to them how to use it.
Yeah. Yep.
And as you're using it, ideas come to mind as well. And a lot of times people have said in the comments, they've said, you've answered every question I've had, because in my video, I'll say, and I know you're probably thinking X after I
Yep.
make a Y point. And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So that's
Nice.
probably a really good way of getting that engagement as well. But also, yeah, being
Yep.
authentic.
Totally. Another thing is just I try to do something that relaxes me before I start filming. Because again, you know, if you're gonna go see a friend and have a chat, have a conversation, you want to be relaxed. You don't want to be all tensed up. Although I tend to be relatively low energy as it is, and so I actually like drinking a cup of coffee just to amp me up a little bit before I film.
Yep.
So that works for me. But yeah, I think just finding that thing that works for you, you know, that will relax you, get you in the right mood, help it just come across naturally. I think that's a really good thing. Like, do you have anything, Sanjee, that you do pre-filming?
Pre-filming, yeah, I think practically time of day is a big one for me.
Right.
If it's because I've tried everything. I've tried early in the morning. That didn't go well. My voice takes a while to come into gear,
Yeah.
like all our voices, I guess. But I remember friends saying, "You were really deep in that video." I was like, "Yeah, I literally woke up, drank some water, and hit record." But later in the night is good. But then I do notice, like, I almost need to be wearing makeup because I start, the age starts to come through. But I do feel more myself late at night. Like that's better
Gotcha.
for a certain type of video.
Gotcha.
Tutorials are probably more a during the day kind of thing. And then temperature is really important to me. It needs to be a bit cooler.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found if I do try and put something in at the end of the recording, like I need to record in the next hour and then I need to go somewhere, that does feel like that actually helps me with some of my videos in terms of it rushes me because I do tend to over explain stuff.
Gotcha.
So I do like having a bit of a time limit because then I know I need to get it done, and I think of the quicker way of getting to it,
Gotcha. Yep.
which I know is a bit different.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think we've already touched on some of the points around sponsorships, which is around around finding the right balance, finding right partners, finding people that you would actually use.
Yeah.
Like I've said, the companies that I would like to use in a personal finance space, they don't need sponsors. They're going fine. And then the ones who
Gotcha.
do contact me, I've never used, you've never used, no one will ever use. Well, that sounds really bad, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a unfortunate thing. So
Yeah. That's definitely a practical thing, and I've personally found some are really obvious no's, like when you get a fishing product or something, that's just completely irrelevant to the channel. It's a pretty easy no. But I have found some aren't as clear. is this product relevant to my audience? Is this not relevant to my audience? And I think that's maybe where the principles come back in as well. So it's like the principles tend to inform the practicalities, like, what's my channel about? Who am I trying to help? And then that'll help you decide whether or not to take that particular sponsorship. So yeah.
I was thinking one category we probably didn't touch on was around people, if they've been with you for a while, they might like to see the journey. And I think that does come into authenticity, is around you sort of say at the start of the year, I'm going to do this, or, this is 6 months of me trying to do Y. And that was sort of an idea where maybe you say at the start of the year, I'm going to try and do these 3 things. And then 3 months later, you make a video about how you did those 3 things. Always the first version of that video, no one clicks on because no one cares about what you're going to do. Everyone wants to know what you did do and what you learned from it and, all of that.
Yep.
But that's probably a way of, maybe it might be more an integrity thing rather than authenticity. But that's always an interesting thing to try out. Could be something worth considering as well for someone out there.
Yep.
And I absolutely agree around creating things for other people. I think the classic one is, think of videos that you would have watched 2 years ago on a particular topic that you're now maybe a little bit ahead on. So, for me in the personal finance space, it's always about brokerage, ETFs, how do they work? How would you set them up? In other areas, it might be around how do you establish a baseline in terms of your healthcare or whatever it is. And I'm sure for yourself, Nick, there's probably some key topics in terms of what baseline topics that someone who's in the early stages of creating content would want to learn about and would want to build, and that helps prompt you. And it's always, it's that same idea of having the right target audience. The other caveat for me, I've realized, is I have to be careful of the stocks that I talk about. And it's weird. It's around being authentic, but you can't front run investment decisions. So I can never really talk about what I'm investing in right now, because it may be perceived as me telling people to invest in it as well. Gotcha. And then I can get a benefit from that. Yep. So there's something I've been doing a lot of in terms of the investing space, like a particular thing that I'm investing in, but I can't really make a video about it and talk about it today, because while it would be very authentic, it probably wouldn't be very legal in terms of this is something I'm doing, but it's probably something that I can do down the track.
Gotcha.
And talk about.
Yep.
And similarly, actually, sorry, this is my final point, is around something Colin and Samir, I think, talked about at times, is around making sure you show your receipts on the internet. So your proof of doing things. So I think for yourself, Nick, it's really much around, I use this product. It's an example of, how I'm actually using something that I'm recommending, but also this is how I built the channel. We've got the evidence of that. And similarly for me, if I'm making investments, it's just making sure I'm calling out, here's evidence of it, or I show screenshots here or there of something to call it out.
Yeah. And also like delivering on, kind of like you were saying before, delivering on your promises and doing the things you say you're going to do. Like I was listening to them talk about their the course that they're creating, and they were basically saying how they're really putting a lot of effort into it to make sure it is really high quality and it does give people a lot of value. Because otherwise, it doesn't come across that they don't come across as authentic. Their reputation as being authentic goes down the toilet if they put out a product and ask people to pay for it. That's not actually good. So I guess it's the same thing with content, making sure that I deliver on what I'm recommending or saying or whatever it is.
I look forward to the episode we do on experience of launching products.
Yes.
That we do one day, which means we've actually made a product and sold it, and that will be a great experience to share.
Hopefully soon.
I do think that would be super interesting, on a journey basis to actually document that. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, no, I would just totally agree. And it will be soon, hopefully.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I can't wait. There you go. All right. So, Nick, where can people find you on the internet?
I am on YouTube, Nick Kendall, and then Instagram sometimes. I feel like it changes every episode we record. Just at Nick Kendall _. And then my newsletter is Create Better. You can sign up on my YouTube channel. How about you?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Sanjee Sen on YouTube and sanjeesen.com on the internet. And that's really it in terms of where I'm broadly active. Everywhere else, I've got a presence, but don't expect too much, is what I would say.
Nice.
So, with that, we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye for now.